guys, what is up? My name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and welcome to today's video, which has been a couple of years in the making. If you've been on my channel before, you would know I started reading middle grade, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, and ever since then I've been keeping a list of books that I would recommend to get into middle grade, or what I could call like my ultimate middle grade list, all of my favorite middle grade books. Now that this list has gotten to 10, I thought it'd be a great time to make this video. This can be useful if you're an adult like me who's trying to get into middle grade, or if you want to recommend middle grade books to children that you may know of. So if you've been here before, I tried to not make like it's super obvious, so I haven't listed them in order of like top 10 to number 1. They are kind of all mixed together, even though I do have my favorites. So without further ado, let's hop on in. The first book I would like to talk about is Amari and the Night Brothers by D.B. Austin. This is actually a personalized copy that I won on Twitter, and honestly, I love that for me. If you have not heard of Amari and the Night Brothers, this is a story that follows a young black girl named Amari, who at the beginning of this book we learn that her brother has been missing and the police presume that he is dead. Now Amari doesn't believe that her brother is dead, and like the police have been saying like maybe your brother got into, you know, bad stuff and that he got killed, and they're just insinuating a lot of negative things. And soon after the beginning of the book, Amari actually gets a letter and a kind of suitcase that transports her to a supernatural world where her brother was actually involved in, and Amari had no idea this world existed. And she kind of gets thrust into this world, learns about her magical powers, which this kind of has like the chosen one trope, so Amari does have very interesting and powerful magical abilities. And so this is the quest for Amari to find her brother, as well as learn about her powers. And obviously because she's so powerful, people are afraid of her, so it's all the discussions around power and prejudice and the fact that Amari is black. And it's a wonderful story. It is action-packed. I love where the plot line goes. This is the first book in a series. Currently the first 2 books are out, and there will be more coming our way, luckily enough. And yeah, it's like a mix of Men in Black meets Nevermore meets a bunch of other, I feel like, fantastic middle grade books, but it truly does something different. It is iconic, and I really love Amari. This was my favorite book, I believe, either of 2020 or 2021, and I've talked about this countless times, but it's just phenomenal. I feel like it tackles very important topics for young children in a good way, while also being entertaining and full of magic. The second book I want to talk about is a book that I haven't spoken of much on my channel, but I do really enjoy it, and that is the Highland Falcon Thief. This is by MJ Leonard and Sam Sedgman. This is the first of, I believe, 5 or 6 books that are now currently out, and this is a mystery middle grade series. But essentially in this first book we follow our main character Harrison, and he and his uncle go on this train adventure, and it's the first time that Harrison goes on a train, and so his uncle is teaching him all about trains, but at the same time they are solving a mystery, and from there things spiral. Obviously it's very interesting to be solving a mystery on a train, because it's like a closed, secluded group of people who you're dealing with. This also has illustrations throughout, and it is a fantastic book. I feel like it really grips you and you're really interested in solving the clues. It is a great mystery middle grade book. I highly recommend. And from this series we have a kidnapping as the second book, there's murder, there's a bunch of different things that go on, and it's all with Harrison and his uncle, who, you know, go on these train adventures, a bunch of different trains, so you get to see train settings, you learn about trains, and you solve some mysteries. What else can you ask for? Then what I feel like is the most iconic middle grade that has taken booktube by storm in the past years, that is the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. Currently there are 3 books in the series. I believe there's supposed to be 7 books total in this series, and we are expecting book number 4, which was pushed back, to be out, I believe, in September or October of this year. Now if you have not heard of Nevermore, it is an extraordinary middle grade book. It follows a young girl here named Morgan Crow. And in the first book you learn that Morgan is actually a cursed child and that she is set to die on her 12th birthday. But before that can happen, she is scooped away by this strange man named Juniper North, and he takes her to the land of Nevermore. Because Morgan is not a citizen of Nevermore, she actually has to go through a set of different trials in order to be able to stay. Now, during this time, Morgan learns about her powers. She is also, similarly to Amari, judged because her powers are very strong and very different to others. And along the way she makes some friends, she learns, and there's like this school setting as well. There's a big giant magical cat in there, and I recommend these books so incredibly much because there's diversity in these books. There's multiple different discussions that I feel young children and adults should, you know, be aware of, and it's just such a magical and fun time. This is definitely like it does have some similarities to Harry Potter, but it is much more inclusive, and Morgan as a character is just absolutely charming, and I love how we discover the world and learn about her magical abilities and whatever that implies throughout the storytelling. Jessica Townsend is an excellent writer, and she really does get you in the vibes, and it's just such a magical experience, and I highly recommend either reading this and listening to the audiobook or simply listening to the audio if you want, because they are phenomenal. And again, these are just so fun, so creative, very different, and highly recommend. It is a booktube staple for a reason. The next book I want to talk about is The Castle of Tangled Magic by Sophie Anderson. This is another book I don't speak enough of on my channel, and it's really why I wanted to put it in my recommendations. This is a standalone book, but Sophie Anderson has, I believe, 4 or 5 middle grade books out now, and they are phenomenal. She is most commonly known for her book The House with Chicken Legs. This follows a main character named Olia, and she discovers a magical door, and that door brings her into this magical land with a castle, and within that land there is magic, but there is also a wizard who is fighting to control all of that magic, and it is up to our main character to save the land, and this includes the animals, the friends she makes along the way, and the impact that like she and everybody else has on this land also impacts her family. So it's very much a chosen one trope in this fantastical land which Sophie Anderson crafts, and it is such a unique story, and the characters and the side characters in this and the fox, absolutely adorable. I don't want to say too much about this because it is a standalone book and I don't want to spoil anything, but if you're looking for something a little bit different, I believe that these are set, they are based off, I don't know if it's Russian or some sort of folklore, but it's very much steeped in folklore of some sort, which I'm blanking on now, but it is a remarkable way to storytell, and Sophie Anderson's prose is fantastic for both children and adults alike. And if you have not picked up her books, whatever one you pick up, I highly recommend this. This story specifically I absolutely loved, and it's full of emotion and whimsy, and it's a very hopeful story, so highly recommend. The next book I have been talking about for months now, and it's just such a fantastic discovery, and that is Skandor and the Unicorn Thief by A.F. Stedman. Don't ask me how many copies of this book I own. I will not answer, but look at this. Now, if you have not heard me speak of this series, or if you have not seen my full review for the books, which I will link right up here, Skandor and the Unicorn Thief is the first book in a 5-book series. Currently, the first 2 books are out, and we follow our main protagonist named Skandor, who lives on a mainland. But in this world, there is the mainland and there is the island, and on the island there are these unicorns. There are wild unicorns and there are unicorns that are tamed. Now, how they have tamed the unicorns is that when they hatch, they become bonded with unicorn riders, and so every year a new group of young people who are Skandor's age get to go through this process, and they take an exam, and if they pass the exam they are sent to the island to bond with a unicorn, and that starts a 5-year school-like process where they learn how to be with their unicorn and how to control the powers that come with bonding to a unicorn. The story originally says that there are 4 elements: the water, earth, fire, air. It is very Avatar-like. However, Skandor and his unicorn have the chosen one trope, and essentially you learn of a 5th element, and that makes Skandor very unpopular because what the element represents within this world. And so it is the story of Skandor with his new abilities, going to this school, I guess you could call, training grounds, and starting his future at that specific place with his unicorn. Now obviously a lot of other things are going on, but it is very reminiscent of Avatar and Harry Potter with a mix of Percy Jackson. Along the way, Skandor makes a trio of friends and they all live together. It is just absolutely mind-boggling how much I love this book. This is a great story if your children or yourself are looking to be plunged back into the nostalgia of Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, all of these things, because it does it so well, but it also has its unique touch to it. And if you want more information on this, I highly recommend checking out my review, because I gushed about this book for like 10 minutes straight. This is definitely one of my favorites. So if you want to see my reaction to book 2, subscribe to the channel because I am currently reading that. The next book is a book I saw a few booktubers talk about, but honestly it does not get the hype it deserves, unfortunately, and that is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. This is a 2-book series and it follows a main character whose dad disappeared, and her mother is going on tour, I believe, because she's a psychologist, and she released a new book, something of the sorts, and so she ends up being sent to a boarding school. Now at that boarding school, stuff happens. She makes friends, but there's also some mysterious things which she finds and kind of gets her into trouble, and she starts uncovering a lot of things at Black Hollow Lane. And in this there's like a secret society, just a bunch of amazing things, you guys. This is for me the best middle grade mystery I've read, like hands down. The friendships, the mystery, the atmosphere, it did give me like the creepy vibes, and I really enjoyed this. The pacing of this is absolutely fantastic. It's only a duology, so really you're not committing to a huge series, and it's just, again, it's kind of reminiscent of some of the Harry Potter vibes, but it does something completely different. It is absolutely its own story, and it's really worth the read. If you guys were looking for a mystery book, if you are looking for something that's a little bit thrilling but not too creepy, this has all the vibes. I highly recommend this. Very underhyped. The next book will also have a full review on my channel, either posted before or after this, but it will, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it is Fireborn, 12 and the Frozen Forest. This edition is also beautiful. This is written by Aisling Fowler. It is the first book in the series. Currently the first 2 are out, but I don't know if this is like a trilogy or what, if there's other books in the series that are coming our way. But this is a very different middle grade because of its setting. It is very much like a polar fantasy medieval vibe middle grade book. It follows a main character named 12 who is a huntling at the hunting lodge, and this lodge is essentially a place where people kind of give up their identity and like vow to protect and work for the community. And basically Morgan being a huntling means that she is learning about all those creatures that exist outside the walls of where she lives. So she's learning how to defend herself and her community, she's learning about them, but she's also kind of making friends. 12 isn't, I don't know if I said Morgan, her name is 12. 12 isn't so good at making friends, but the real plot line of the story is that when one of the other students, 7, goes missing, 12 takes it upon herself to go and find her, and along the way she works with this dog who was so fun to read about, as well as 2 other students who are 5 and 6. Morgan, why do I keep calling her Morgan? 12 doesn't really get along with them. And so it's kind of the story of their friendship, as well as Morgan, I can't stop saying Morgan, as well as 12 learning about herself. We learn about her family life, about the guilt she has been carrying with her. all while being in a snowy setting. 12 is accompanied by her pet squirrel. It is a great time. It feels very medieval because they're fighting with axes and bow and arrows, and there's no like mention of technology in here, and it's very interesting. It's very different to a lot of the other books I've read, and I found it absolutely fantastic. The end of this is super interesting. It leaves you sort of on a cliffhanger, so you definitely want to read the second book straight away afterwards. And just the way the characters are, like the way the character growth is done, the mentions of family, and just all the creatures who were introduced in this book as well, makes it such a fun read. And this is another one that I feel has not had enough hype here on BookTube. The next book I want to talk about is City of Bones. City of Ghosts. City of Bones. We're not talking about Cassandra Clare, we're talking about Victoria Schwab. This is a trilogy, and it's a very interesting one. This is like the only works of Victoria Schwab that I have enjoyed, and it's such a great middle grade series for spooky season. City of Ghosts follows a main character named Cassidy, who when she was younger was in some sort of accident that left her with the ability to see beyond a veil where people are dead. They are ghosts, and so she has this power, and ironically enough her mom and dad have this paranormal TV series, but they don't have her ability, so it's all a bunch of crap. And it's very interesting because her parents do not know that she has this ability, and so within these books we go on adventures throughout different places. We go to Paris, and this one I believe we are in Edinburgh, and it's basically ghost stories and Cassidy kind of dealing with her powers and her ability to see these people and bringing them, like they're stuck in that veil and she has to kind of bring them to the afterlife, and it's all spooky, and she has a friend who is a ghost, and it's just all of the vibes. Like honestly, this is such a spooky season read, and both, like all of the books are great. And yeah, I just think that if you're looking for something a little bit spooky, if your children are, it's not like, obviously it's middle grade so it's suited for children, but I don't like very gory books, and I found a lot of pleasure in reading this trilogy. And yeah, it's very fun, very spooky, has ghosty elements, it's a vibe. And Victoria Schwab's writing is amazing. She is a very talented author, so I have nothing bad to say about this series. And the last books I want to talk about, I'm not gonna hold because they're too big, but it is the Tea Dragon Society graphic novels. There are, to my knowledge, 3 out, and they are just fantastic ways to read a story. The art style is really what gets me, and the little creatures, the little dragons, freaking adorable. If you're looking either for a quick read or just for a soft time palette cleanser, something to calm you down, I highly recommend these books. And they are also filled with a lot of life lessons that are important to understand when you are children, and they are brought upon in such creative ways, and they don't bog down the book, but they also have discussions that are very important. Obviously they are made into like a fantastical story because tea dragons, but they are simply amazing, and the author is incredible. The illustrations are fantastic, and they're just beautiful to collect as well. With that, I would also recommend Aquicorn Cove by the same author. That one has a lot to say about the environment, protecting the oceans, with such a beautiful story and illustrations, and I just feel like they are like the most iconic middle grade graphic novels, so I had to recommend them as well. So that closes out my list of my 10 favorite middle grade series / books. I hope this was helpful. If some of you have not heard of these books before, I hope you got some recommendations out of it. And for those of you guys who have been here, it kind of cements at least my favorite middle grade books that I talk about all the time. So that was it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.